Okay, let's talk a little bit more about views. One of the things you may have seen it, I don't know. Over here in your properties, you have a box for discipline, and if you look at the options there, excuse me, we've got the major, trades that you're dealing with. And by default, what you're going to be working in is architectural discipline, meaning it shows architectural items. Okay, so I've gone over here in my reflected ceiling plan. I've got some light fixtures that I put in and a mechanical, an air vent, okay? And you notice here I put a couple of toilets in. I just dropped these in here just to kind of show you what is going on here. So if I were to change from architectural, I'm going to dump down to plumbing. And you notice a lot of things get hidden, but the plumbing fixtures, stay out there. And if I go to my ceiling, I didn't change there. So let's change that back to architectural. Okay, now let's look at our ceiling plan. And the lights and the diffusers show up because they're referenced by architectural. But if I go to electrical, now you notice everything else is grayed out and the electrical stuff stays bold, okay? So it makes it more visible. Same thing if I change back to mechanical. Those stay the same because MEP objects often work together. If I go to coordination, it basically shows everything, okay? So there'll be times when we're going to, depending on what our project is, in which we want to show some of these items, especially structural items and architectural items, in which we'll use the coordination. And a lot of times this is just when you're building your modeling and you're doing documentation, you want to be able to see things that may not be there because you want to make sure there's no conflicts. So you may leave it set to coordination. And then when it comes time to make drawings, you're going to switch back to either architectural or if you're doing a structural drawing, you have a structural discipline. If you're doing electrical drawing, you'll have electrical discipline, stuff like that. Okay, so now let's look at structural because that's one that you will deal with. And you notice all the walls disappeared because none of these walls were set as structural walls, okay? So let's change that back and let's select all of these exterior walls, and I'm going to select all instances. And where's it at? Right here. I'm going to make all of these structural walls. Okay. And the same way here in my elevator shaft. Select the CMU walls. Selected? No, that selected the elevator. Okay, got those. And I'm going to make those structural, but I want to look at my wall type while we're here. And we notice only the masonry units are checked as a structural material. Okay, the metal studs and none of the other stuff are considered structural material, so it's just the CMUs. Okay. All right. Now, let's go back to structural discipline. Okay, so now you can see my exterior walls are still visible and those core walls, along with the drywall portion of it, is visible because they were considered structural walls. when we are checking that back in the wall family, when I made sure that CMU was clicked as structural and the others were not, what that is doing is using it as calculation, I guess you would say, for calculating things, okay, for loads and stuff like that. All right, so that deals with some disciplines type stuff. That is just basically showing you where it is and how we can make those changes, okay. Now, when we have lots of different, when you work through a project, you're going to have multiple floor plans. Like this project, we've got 4 different floor plans, okay? Well, level 3 is actually a roof, but if you imagine a larger building, office building, apartment complex, something like that, you're going to have multiple floor plans. You're going to have multiple elevations, at least 4 exterior elevations. You may have interior elevations for bathrooms or cabinetries, kitchen, things like that. So we could go through and make all these settings on every one of these. It just means, okay, so we got to set the scale, our detail level, our view range, our visibility graphics, all of these things. We'd have to do it in every plan. That's not, it's not practical. So what we do is we use a view template. And if we go in our menu here, we go to view templates. All right, so we've got 3 different options here. If we have templates already created, we can go apply template to the current view. All that means is that it applies it to that view. It does not link it to the view. So if you were to edit the view template, it would not update that particular view. Okay. We can create a template from the current view. And a good example of this would be if we're doing like cabinet elevations for, let's say bathroom elevations. And so I'm going to have multiple interior elevations of bathrooms. And so I go to one view in my project, and I make all the settings in that particular view. So I'm looking at it and I see what I want as far as scale and visibility graphics, view, all that kind of stuff. And then I can come here and I can create a template from the current view, and I would call it like bath elevation or cabinetry elevation, something like that. And then I can apply that template to, or not apply, but I can link that template to my other views. That's one way. If we go to manage view templates, here you can see the default ones are already set up. Okay, and you can do the whole sorting thing here. Okay, so let's go to architectural plan and let's go through here and look at some of the stuff. So it's got all of the parameters that you would have in your properties as to whether to include them or not. And let's see, for an example, underlay is not included. Okay, color scheme, colors are not. And this is kind of normal, okay? Because once you apply a view template to a view, you cannot make these changes in that individual view. You either have to take the view template out or go back to the view template to make those changes. I know that sounds complicated, but so let's let's change that detail level to medium, okay, and let's go into visibility and graphics. All right, so there's a lot of stuff that's in here that we may not want. Okay, and when you're dealing with your project in 1129, you're going to see we don't need fire protection, we don't need entourage, we don't need curtain panels and things like that. There's a lot of things that we're not going to have. All right, and so in particular, in like on a floor plan, we really don't want, you know, hardscape and planting. We don't want parking to show. Let's see, what else? We don't want site to show. We don't want topography. Okay, so we would turn those things off. Okay. So let's go ahead and say okay to that. Model display. Yeah, we'll leave that at hidden line. We're not going to mess with any of these other things. Architectural, okay. So all of those are good. So we'll say okay. So now that has made this change, and we can see once we apply it, right here, we go down View Template, and we're going to apply the architectural plan. Okay. And so that made all of my changes. Now I can go to level 2. And let me reset that. Oh, it has an underlay. You can see it has an underlay in it already. Trying to think, what else can I change? Okay, so I'm gonna change the scale on that one just to show you how this works, okay? And so if I come in here now and apply that view template to it, it did not turn off the underlay because remember we do not have underlay checked in here. So I would have to, where'd it go? Underlay right here, I would have to change that back to none. Okay. And I can do the same thing with level 3. Okay, so that's an example of it. And it really comes in handy for like building elevations. If you have multiple floors in a project, it comes in handy for that. Typically, we're not going to use it so much for site plans because what we're doing, we only have like one site plan, okay? Basement floors or, you know, foundation drawings would be different. If you had multiple structural drawings, you would set up a view template for that. So view templates are a great way for handling things, you know, the settings when you have multiple objects and multiple drawings. Okay, so I'm going to pause this video and then we'll come back and look at the visibility and graphics overrides, okay?